in which case I would be considered the retrograde person in that I'm mistaking the suburb for the city, and that's what makes horse races. But I definitely think, as a matter of fact, while I'm working on The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, Volume 3 right now, where there's a definite link between Ward Green, who wrote Rip Kirby and was the general manager of King Features Syndicate, and Willie Seabrook, who worked at King Features and was fictionalized by Ward Green as Jake Perry in Ride the Nightmare, are both linked in 1919 to Aleister Crowley, the wickedest man in the world, who, if you really stretch your definitions and you say, well, Aleister Crowley was a very spiritual guy. Well, I suppose you can put it that way, but being at the point in the book where I'm documenting this link between Ward Green, Willie Seabrook, and Aleister Crowley, no, I think it's really, really unhealthy stuff. And sincere apologies to Alan Moore and Steve Bissett and anybody else who doesn't agree with that. I'm not really sure where, if you were going to call it a book, where am I in the book and where is Steve Peters in the book? That might be an interesting question for Steve.
Okay. I will definitely send him a message, just let him know, hey, watch the videos on Saturday, and if you got something, if he's got an answer, and he sends it to me, I'll send it up to you.
All right. Okay. And share it with all the Moment of Cerebus people.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Then we've got Dion Turner. Question for next time, which may have been asked in the past. If so, put the kibosh on it and send me on my way to a link. Were there any other authors that you considered having counterparts adapted for Cerebus? In my mind, there is an untold tale of Cerebus the Barbarian where he meets Lovecraft, and they are trapped in a town of fish people monsters, or a Dunwich horror scenario, giving Lovecraft a twin. That would be interesting. Lovecraft is one of those ones that I think is way over there. If we're in the same book, I hope I'm at the opposite end of the book from H.P. Lovecraft. Just again, really, really unhealthy kind of stuff to be making up, because I think my core concern about it, and the thing that I would caution anybody about on going the H.P. Lovecraft direction or the Stephen King direction, any of those guys. My caveat would be, how comfortable are you with the fact that you're actually making this up, and that this isn't being fed to you, and that whoever is feeding this to you, you don't have screens against who is feeding this to you, and you could be doing things that are not only extremely detrimental to human society in the long term, but detrimental to yourself, because I think you're culpable for anything that you create, which is one of the reasons that the more praying I did, and the more fasting I did, and the more scriptures that I read aloud as just part of my day-to-day life, the more aware I was of got to be walking around in the same landmine field that I'm walking around in, and very likely, it seems to me, getting themselves into all kinds of trouble that if they were aware of what they were actually doing, they wouldn't go anywhere near this. But it would be interesting, Dion, to have done that. I would have been, I think, even hesitant at the time of taking that kind of chance with somebody like H.P. Lovecraft, who was so overtly pedal to the metal into the whole infernal thing, that even studying H.P. Lovecraft to the extent that I studied Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald and Oscar Wilde, I would have been worried about my own soul, that understanding an individual that thoroughly, where you read all of their works, all of their fictional works, and then you read all of their published letters that are available, and then you read as many of the commentaries as you can. That's far more waiting around in the lake of fire that than I would ever be inclined to do myself on my worst day. And although I did read Lovecraft at the time, and boy, he's really good at that stuff. It's no, just reading somebody's work and immersing yourself in their work so that you can do a good fictional version of them. Those are two entirely different things. Suggests Mark Twain as well. Mark Twain would have been an interesting character to fictionalize. I'm not sure that Mark Twain in toto is something that I would have been interested in reading all of his works and then fictionalizing him. I think Huckleberry Finn, because of its, that's really the enduring Mark Twain work. So I probably would have been inclined to find a Mark Twain character in Huckleberry Finn, and then read and reread Huckleberry Finn, and then read and reread all of whatever Mark Twain had to say about Huckleberry Finn at the time that he wrote it, and however many years after he wrote it, that he was still talking about it. That would have been interesting. Edgar Allan Poe, it's like, no, now we're going back the other way again. It's like, I don't think you can study Edgar Allan Poe and all of Edgar Allan Poe's works and read all of Edgar Allan Poe's letters without doing serious damage to yourself and to your soul. Although there's Edgar Allan Poe's material that I like. I'm as big a fan of The Raven as anybody, and definitely The Black Cat by way of Bernie Wrightson. A lot of this stuff, it was my affection for Bernie Wrightson and my love of Bernie Wrightson's artwork that dragged me over into territories where angels fear to tread. Cerebus unstuck in his own timeline, like Billy Pilgrim in Slaughterhouse-Five, set primarily during latter days, but including everything, especially Something Fell. This might be playing in with my wish to see Cerebus abducted by aliens. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Slaughterhouse-Five, particularly the microcosm, macrocosm of him getting the diamond ring that Pilgrim did. No, we're all inside Diamond in that aspect. So there you go.
As you're going through the list of authors, I'm going, I could see a young Cerebus Huckleberry Finn parody with young Cerebus and Bear on a raft going down the river. And I'm like, and then a great Cerebus jam strip that got lost to the ages, but I could totally see that. And I could also see an epic illustrated story with Cerebus dealing with an Edgar Allan Poe pastiche that, it's this depressed guy and Cerebus is just like, leave me alone.
Right. Yeah, it's by the time I had done doing Oscar Wilde and realizing what that immersion effect is like, it was definitely a matter of, I think F. Scott Fitzgerald is either safe or relatively safe, and I'm hoping that Hemingway is safe or relatively safe. And I think that was the case. I don't think it was safe for them. I would not want to be carrying Scott Fitzgerald's baggage before God on Judgment Day, and I wouldn't want to be carrying Ernest Hemingway's baggage in front of God on Judgment Day. If I had to pick between the two, I'd probably take Scott, but I'm not really very comfortable with what I'm dragging before God on Judgment Day, and I'm still working on that one. So there you go.
Well, and the other thing is you immersed yourself in Wilde enough that Wilde came back for the next book where, you dealt with his death because there was that much Wilde baggage that you picked up. I can't imagine you doing Fitzgerald or Hemingway when you were still drinking. I think you would have died.
Well, I was still drinking when I was doing Scott.
Oh, I thought you had quit before that.
No, I actually had, because I was a binge drinker, I would drink Friday night excessively. I wanted to have the experience of, okay, what is it like to write hungover? So there was the parts of The Beautiful and Damned that I was parodying, that I wrote on Saturday morning, hungover from the night before, because I figured, well, I better know what this was like, because obviously Scott Fitzgerald wrote a good chunk of his oeuvre when he was hungover. But yeah, it was also a matter of I couldn't leave Oscar Wilde just as the Oscar Wilde character in Jacques' story, and then was definitely impelled to do Melmoth. And there are elements of Oscar Wilde through the rest of Cerebus. That was one of the benefits of doing Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway in the last 5 years of the book, that I will be able to just keep it at this, even though there was definitely the impulse to revisit the characters. I didn't say everything that I needed to say here about them, but it's, you're not God. You're never going to be able to say all that you need to say about another human being. You don't even understand yourself well enough to be able to examine yourself exhaustively. How can you think that these people that you never actually met